In the winter of 1984, I was on an operation in a country I cannot name. The details of the mission don't matter for this video. What matters is what happened on the third night. I was in a vehicle with one other officer. We were driving through a rural area. No streetlights, no other cars. Just a narrow road through flat, empty land with snow on both sides. And then the engine died. No warning, no sputtering, just silence. One moment the car was running, and the next it wasn't. We were approximately 40 kilometers from the nearest town. It was minus 22 degrees Celsius outside. That's roughly minus 8 Fahrenheit for those of you who use that system. We had no cell phones because cell phones didn't exist yet. We had no radio that could reach our contact at that distance. We had half a tank of fuel that was now useless because the engine wouldn't turn over. And we had approximately 4 to 5 hours before hypothermia would become a serious threat if we stayed in the car without heat. 6 hours if we were lucky. 8 if we did everything right. That night could have killed us. It didn't. And the reason it didn't had nothing to do with our training or our physical fitness or our mental toughness. It had to do with 5 items that my partner had in his bag. 5 ordinary, cheap items that most people would never think to carry. Items that cost almost nothing. Items that took up almost no space. And items that kept us alive until morning when a passing truck found us and towed us to the nearest village. That experience changed how I think about preparedness forever, and it taught me something that I carried through the rest of my career and into my retirement. You don't need expensive gear to survive an emergency. You don't need a military-grade survival kit or a bunker full of supplies. What you need are a few simple, inexpensive items that address the most common ways emergencies actually kill people. Not the dramatic Hollywood scenarios, not a plane crash on a deserted island. The real emergencies. The ones that happen to ordinary people every day. A car breakdown in cold weather. A power outage that lasts 3 days. Getting lost on a hike. A natural disaster that cuts you off from help for 48 hours. A medical emergency when you're far from a hospital. These are the situations that actually kill people. And in almost every case, the difference between surviving and not surviving comes down to a handful of basic items and the knowledge of how to use them. I served in the KGB for over 20 years. During that time, I operated in extreme conditions on multiple continents. Deserts, mountains, Arctic environments, dense urban areas during civil unrest. And across all of those environments and all of those years, I learned that survival is not about having the most gear. It's about having the right gear. The items I'm going to share with you today are not secret KGB technology. They're not classified. They're not exotic. You can buy every single one of them at a hardware store or a pharmacy for less than the cost of a meal at a restaurant. But I can tell you from personal experience that each of these items has the potential to save your life. And the tragedy is that almost nobody carries them. Item number 1, a high-quality emergency whistle. This sounds almost absurdly simple. A whistle, something you'd give to a child. But let me explain why this was one of the first items we were told to always carry during field operations. The human voice can project about 100 to 200 meters under ideal conditions. On a calm day with no wind and no ambient noise, someone screaming for help might be heard 200 meters away, maybe. Under real emergency conditions, with wind and rain and traffic and distance, that range drops to almost nothing. 50 meters, sometimes less. And screaming exhausts you. Your voice gives out after minutes of sustained shouting. You lose energy. You lose water through heavy breathing. You lose body heat. Screaming for help is one of the least efficient things you can do in an emergency. A whistle changes everything. A good emergency whistle can be heard up to 1.5 kilometers away. Some models even further, depending on conditions. It requires almost no energy to use. You can blow a whistle for hours without tiring. It works in rain. It works in wind. It works in fog. It works in darkness when nobody can see you waving your arms. 3 short blasts on a whistle is the universal distress signal. Anyone who hears it knows someone is in trouble. And unlike a scream, a whistle sound is distinctive. It cuts through ambient noise. It doesn't sound like an animal or a car or the wind. It sounds like what it is. A signal. a call for help. I know a case from the late 70s where one of our operatives was injured during a training exercise in a mountainous region. He had fallen into a ravine, broken his leg, couldn't climb out. He had no radio, no flares, no way to signal for help. But he had a whistle on a cord around his neck. He blew that whistle every 30 seconds for 6 hours. The search team found him at nightfall. They told him afterward that they heard the whistle from over a kilometer away, even though they couldn't see him, and he was below the ridgeline in heavy tree cover. Without that whistle, he would have spent the night in that ravine in freezing temperatures with a broken leg. He almost certainly would not have survived. A whistle, $2, weighs nothing, fits on your keychain, and it might be the difference between being found and not being found. I carry one every day. I have for 40 years. Item number 2, a small flashlight. Not the flashlight on your phone, a real, dedicated flashlight. And let me tell you why the distinction matters. Your phone flashlight is useful for finding your keys in a dark parking lot. That's about it. It drains your phone battery, which, in an emergency, is your lifeline for communication and navigation. It's not waterproof. It's not shockproof. If you drop your phone in water or on concrete, you've lost your light source and your phone in one moment. A proper small flashlight runs on its own battery. It's designed to withstand impact and water. Many modern ones are made of aluminum and can survive being dropped from significant heights onto concrete without damage. They produce a focused beam that can reach 50 to 100 meters, depending on the model, and they run for hours on a single battery or charge. Some of the best ones today cost less than $10 and fit in your pocket or clip to your belt. There is no excuse not to carry one. Why does light matter so much in an emergency? Because darkness kills. Not directly, but darkness causes panic. Darkness causes disorientation. Darkness causes you to make decisions based on zero information, and those decisions are almost always wrong. You trip, you fall, you walk in the wrong direction, you step off a ledge, you walk into traffic, you miss the turn that leads to safety. In the KGB, we were trained extensively in low-light and no-light operations. We knew how to move in darkness, how to navigate by feel and by memory, how to count paces and maintain direction without visual reference. And even with all of that training, we carried flashlights. Always, without exception, because light gives you information, and information keeps you alive. I'll tell you something that happened to a colleague of mine in the early 90s. After the Soviet Union collapsed, things were chaotic in many cities, rolling blackouts. Power would go out for hours at a time, sometimes entire days. One evening, the power went out, and he needed to get from his 5th-floor apartment to the ground level to check on an elderly neighbor. The stairwell was pitch black, no emergency lighting. He didn't have a flashlight. He knew the stairwell well enough. He'd walked it thousands of times, so he went by feel. On the 3rd-floor landing, someone had left a box of tools in the hallway that hadn't been there before. He tripped over it in complete darkness and fell down half a flight of stairs, broke his wrist and cracked 2 ribs, 6 weeks in recovery, all because he didn't have a $5 flashlight. He bought one the day he left the hospital. He carries it everywhere now. He told me it was the most expensive lesson he ever learned from the cheapest item he ever failed to buy. During a power outage, a flashlight lets you move safely through your home, find your medicine, check on your family, locate the circuit breaker. During a car breakdown at night, it lets you signal other drivers. Check your engine, read a map, walk to safety without stepping into a ditch or onto a highway. During any outdoor emergency, it lets you navigate terrain, find shelter, signal rescuers, build a fire. It is the single most versatile survival tool that exists, and it costs less than a pizza. Don't be one of those people who gets injured or worse because they couldn't see where they were going. Buy a small flashlight, put it in your pocket or your bag, keep spare batteries next to it, and forget about it until the day you need it. Item number 3, a compact emergency thermal blanket. You may have seen these before. They're sometimes called space blankets or survival blankets or mylar blankets. They look like a sheet of thin, shiny foil. They fold up to the size of a deck of cards. They weigh almost nothing, and they can keep you alive in conditions that would otherwise kill you. Here's how they work. Your body constantly radiates heat. In cold conditions, that heat escapes into the air around you, and you get colder and colder until hypothermia sets in. A thermal blanket reflects up to 90% of your body heat back toward you. It creates a barrier between your body and the cold air. It blocks wind, which is one of the biggest factors in heat loss. And it's waterproof, which means it also keeps rain and snow off you. For less than $2, you get a survival tool that addresses the single most common killer in outdoor emergencies: cold. Hypothermia kills more people in wilderness emergencies than dehydration or starvation or injury combined. It kills them because it's silent and gradual. You get cold, you get tired, you stop thinking clearly, you stop shivering, which means your body has given up trying to warm itself. And then you fall asleep. And then you don't wake up. A thermal blanket doesn't make you comfortable. Let me be clear about that. You won't be warm and cozy, but it keeps your core temperature above the threshold where your organs start shutting down. It buys you time. Hours. Sometimes the difference between one night of misery and waking up alive versus not waking up at all. That night in 1984, when our car broke down in minus 22 degrees, the first thing my partner pulled out of his bag was 2 thermal blankets, one for each of us. We wrapped ourselves in them inside the car. The car's insulation, plus the blankets, plus our body heat, kept the interior temperature just barely above freezing. It was miserable. I won't pretend it was anything other than one of the longest, coldest nights of my life. But we survived. Without those blankets, the math is simple. At minus 22, with no heat source, the interior of a car drops to ambient temperature within 2 to 3 hours. At that temperature, exposed skin gets frostbite in under 30 minutes. Core body temperature drops below survivable levels within 4 to 6 hours, depending on your size and clothing. We would not have made it to morning. 2 thin sheets of Mylar that cost less than a cup of coffee saved both our lives. Item number 4. A basic first aid pressure bandage. Not a full first aid kit. I'm not talking about a box full of Band-Aids and antiseptic wipes and tweezers. I'm talking about a single Israeli-style pressure bandage, sometimes called an emergency bandage. It's a sterile dressing with an elastic wrap built into it that allows you to apply direct pressure to a wound. It costs about $3 to $5. It comes in a vacuum-sealed packet about the size of your fist, and it addresses the #1 preventable cause of death in traumatic injuries: bleeding. Uncontrolled bleeding. More people die from blood loss in the first minutes after an injury than from any other single cause. In car accidents, in industrial accidents, in falls, in violent encounters. The injury itself is often survivable. What kills is the bleeding that happens before help arrives, and help is almost never immediate. Even in a city with good emergency services, you're looking at 5 to 15 minutes before an ambulance arrives. In a rural area, it could be 30 minutes, an hour. In some situations, it could be much longer. And a severed artery can cause fatal blood loss in as little as 3 to 5 minutes. The math doesn't work. You cannot wait for help. You have to stop the bleeding yourself, right now, in the first 60 seconds. A pressure bandage is designed for exactly this scenario. You tear open the packet. You place the sterile pad directly over the wound. You wrap the elastic bandage around the limb or body part tightly. The pressure compresses the blood vessels and slows or stops the bleeding. It's simple enough that a child could do it, and it works. In the KGB, every officer carried a pressure bandage during field operations. Not because we expected to be shot, although that was always a possibility, but because injuries happen, car accidents happen, falls happen, cuts from broken glass happen, equipment failures happen. And when they happen and someone is bleeding, the person with the bandage is the person who saves a life. I have personally used a pressure bandage 3 times in my career outside of training. Twice on colleagues and once on a civilian. All 3 survived. All 3 would have been in serious danger without immediate intervention. And all 3 times, the bandage was the only medical supply available in the moment. Not a hospital, not a medic. A $4 bandage in a pocket. Item number 5. A small lighter. Not matches, a lighter. And let me explain the difference and why it matters. Matches are fragile. They can get wet and become useless. A box of matches gives you a limited number of attempts, and if your hands are shaking from cold or stress or injury, you can easily waste half of them trying to get one lit. A lighter works in wind better than matches. It provides a sustained flame, not a brief flare. It works when your hands are shaking because you just press a button or flick a wheel. A basic disposable lighter costs less than $1 and provides thousands of ignitions. It fits in any pocket, and it gives you access to what is arguably the most important survival resource after shelter: fire. Fire provides warmth, obvious, but it does so much more than that. Fire purifies water. If you have a metal container, you can boil contaminated water and make it safe to drink. Fire signals for rescue. A fire is visible for kilometers at night, and the smoke is visible for kilometers during the day. Fire provides light. Fire cooks food. Fire dries wet clothing, which is critical in cold weather because wet clothing accelerates heat loss dramatically. Fire provides psychological comfort, which sounds trivial but is not. In a survival situation, your mental state is as important as your physical condition. Panic kills. Despair kills. Giving up kills. And fire is one of the most powerful psychological tools against all three. There is something deeply primal about sitting next to a fire. It tells your brain that you are safe, that you have control, that you will survive. I have seen trained operatives whose morale completely transformed the moment a fire was lit, from defeated to determined, from hopeless to focused. That psychological shift can be the difference between someone who keeps fighting and someone who gives up. I also want to make a point about fire that goes beyond wilderness survival, because not everyone watching this video is going to find themselves stranded in the mountains. Think about a power outage in winter. Your heating system requires electricity to run. Even gas furnaces need an electric ignition and an electric blower. When the power goes out, your heat goes out. If you have a fireplace or a wood stove and you have a lighter, you have heat. If you don't have a fireplace, you can at least light candles for warmth and light in an emergency. A single large candle produces a surprising amount of heat in a small enclosed space. 3 or 4 candles in a bathroom with the door closed can raise the temperature significantly. These aren't ideal solutions, but survival is not about ideal. Survival is about what you have right now and what you can do with it. And a lighter gives you options that nothing else provides. Let me bring this all together. 5 items: a whistle, a flashlight, a thermal blanket, a pressure bandage, a lighter. Total cost somewhere between $15 and $25, depending on where you buy them and what brands you choose. Total weight less than half a kilogram. Total space less than what a paperback book takes up. You can carry all 5 in a jacket pocket. You can keep all 5 in your glove compartment. You can put all 5 in a small pouch in your bag and forget they're there until the day you need them. And when that day comes, and statistically speaking, it will come at some point in your life, these 5 items cover the 5 most common ways that emergencies kill people. Inability to signal for help, darkness and disorientation, exposure to cold, uncontrolled bleeding, and inability to create fire for warmth and water purification and signaling. I want to be very clear about something. I am not telling you to become a survivalist. I'm not telling you to buy a bunker or stockpile food for the apocalypse. I'm not telling you to live in fear. I'm telling you to spend $20 and 10 minutes of your time to dramatically increase your chances of surviving the most common emergencies that actually happen to real people in the real world. That's it. $20, 10 minutes. And then you go on with your life and forget about it. Until the day your car breaks down on a remote road in January. Until the day the power goes out for 3 days in February. Until the day someone gets hurt and there's blood everywhere and the ambulance is 15 minutes away. On that day, you will reach into your bag or your glove compartment and the items will be there and you will know what to do with them. And that knowledge and those items might be the only things standing between you and a very bad outcome. In the KGB, we had a saying. It loses something in translation, but roughly it means preparedness is not paranoia. Being prepared doesn't mean you're afraid of the world. It means you respect the world enough to take it seriously. It means you understand that things go wrong. Not because you did something wrong, not because you're unlucky, but because that's how life works. Systems fail, weather changes, accidents happen, injuries happen, and the people who survive are not always the strongest or the smartest or the bravest. They're the ones who had the right item in the right pocket at the right time. That night in 1984, minus 22 degrees, a dead engine, 40 kilometers from the nearest town, no radio, no phone, no help coming. My partner reached into his bag and he had everything we needed. 2 thermal blankets, a flashlight, a lighter. He even had a whistle, although we didn't need it that night. We wrapped ourselves in the blankets. We used the flashlight to check the engine one more time without success. We used the lighter to light a small signal fire on the roadside, using some paper and dry brush we gathered from the edge of the road, and we waited. The fire was visible to the truck driver who found us 6 hours later. He said he saw the glow from almost 2 kilometers away and decided to investigate. If we hadn't had that lighter, if we hadn't been able to make that fire, he would have driven past in the dark and never known we were there. And by morning, we would have been 2 more statistics. 2 more bodies found in a car on the side of a road in winter. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. There's a difference. Fear paralyzes. Preparedness empowers. And all the preparedness you need for the most common emergencies in life fits in your pocket and costs less than a dinner out with friends. Do it today, not tomorrow, today. Because emergencies don't send you a calendar invite. They don't wait until you're ready. They come when they come. And when they come, the only question that matters is, do you have what you need? Make sure the answer is yes. Thank you for watching. If this was useful, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. I will keep sharing what I learned over 20 years in the Committee for State Security. Practical knowledge, real experience, things that can make a difference in your life. Until next time.